Frontline is made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Tonight on Frontline, coming to you from Ian and Bob Productions, the famous Supreme Court case that shaped civil rights policies for years to come, Plessy v. Ferguson. On a humid morning, June 7th, 1892, Homer Adolph Plessy purchased a first-class ticket at the Press Street Depot to board a train belonging to the East Louisiana Railroad in New Orleans. That morning, Plessy intentionally boarded an all-white car supported under the Separate Car Act that was just passed by Louisiana in 1890. Little did Mr. Plessy know his actions would shape civil rights laws in the United States for many years to come.
The interesting thing was that I was very aware of what I was doing. See, there was a group of New Orleans citizens at the time called the Committee of Citizens. They were very much against the new law and actually came to me and asked if I would do this. They wanted to become a test case, or that's what they called it. They wanted the courts to overturn the law.
Even though Plessy was only 1/8 African American, he was still asked to move himself to an all-black car. When he refused, Homer Plessy was apprehended by a detective and arrested.
You know what most people don't know is that the railroads didn't even like this law. They didn't want to go out buying more cars to split up the blacks and the whites. So they were in on it too. They knew I was going to get arrested that day. The detective also knew what was going on. He was hired by the Committee of Citizens to ensure that I would be charged with breaking the new Separate Car Act. I guess you could say it was a staged arrest.
In his case, Homer Adolph Plessy v. the State of Louisiana, Plessy's lawyers argued that the new law which segregated train cars denied Plessy of his constitutional rights under the 13th and 14th Amendments. Despite these claims, Judge John Howard Ferguson ruled that the state of Louisiana had the right to regulate railroad laws as long as they remained in state boundaries. Plessy was convicted and sentenced to pay a $25 fine.
Well, I guess Judge Ferguson didn't see things the way I did. But I was confident in my representation, and the committee told me that we could win an appeal. So I went for it. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court of Louisiana agreed with Ferguson's ruling. I was a little discouraged at that, but the committee told me to keep going. I could see that they were still confident in my case, despite our lack of success. They wanted me to keep pushing, so I did. I was along for the ride, and the goal was equality.
Sure enough, in 1896, the Committee of Citizens appealed the case to the United States Supreme Court. 2 legal briefs were written on behalf of Plessy. One, by Albion W. Tourget, cited the 14th Amendment, which guarantees the same rights to all U.S. citizens and equal protection of those rights. Tourget argued that blacks were seen as property in 1890s Louisiana society, which therefore implied that they were inferior to whites under law.
I very much appreciated the work done on my behalf, especially that of my civil rights attorney, Albion Tourget, and my lawyer, James C. Walker. It wasn't just about me or my case anymore. It was about advancing the rights of all colored persons. I wanted to see equality, and I believed that we would be one step closer when we won.
Unfortunately, the Supreme Court justices did not agree with Plessy and Tourget. On May 18, 1896, Homer Adolph Plessy was convicted as a result of a 7-1 Supreme Court decision. The majority of the court denied that the case violated Mr. Plessy of his rights under the 14th Amendment and stated that the two races were separated only as a matter of public policy. Justice John Marshall Harlan was the only one to side with Plessy and wrote in his dissent letter that the outcome would become as infamous as Dred Scott v. Sanford and called for a colorblind constitution.
Our Constitution is colorblind and neither knows nor tolerates classes among citizens. In respect of civil rights, all citizens are equal before the law. The judgment this day rendered will prove to be quite as pernicious as the Dred Scott case.
After the ruling, segregation began to run rampant. Things like bathrooms, drinking fountains, streetcars, and hospitals all became segregated. They even got separate Bibles for blacks to take the oath while in court. With separate but equal becoming more prevalent in society, racism also spread. Poll taxes, literacy tests, and the grandfather clause all were tactics used to deter blacks from voting. When these methods didn't work, whites used threats and physical intimidation to scare blacks from voting. White supremacy created through these rules and regulations became known as the Jim Crow laws.
The outcome was very unfortunate, yes it was, for all blacks everywhere who were fighting for their freedom. But I do, and always will, appreciate the words of Justice Harlan. They truly did mean something to me.
And indeed, those words did turn out to mean something. In 1954, the Supreme Court followed the statement made by Harlan in the case Brown v. the Board of Education, where a unanimous decision ruled that discrimination under the separate but equal policy was unlawful. Today, a monument stands to remember the case. Keith Plessy and Phoebe Ferguson established the Plessy and Ferguson Foundation for Education and Rehabilitation in 2011 to teach the history of civil rights designed to create a better understanding of the original case. Over 100 years later, descendants of the two main players of this famous case stand united. Thanks for watching. For more information, visit our website at pbs.org. Next time on Frontline, a high school drug ring shocks thousands of citizens in southeastern Pennsylvania.